In this chapter, you learn some of the basic formulas that help managers price their products. What could be more important than setting your price? If your price is too high, you cut into sales, but too low and you cut into your margin. These formulas are useful because they take into consideration management's profitability targets. In particular, managers are often evaluated based on return on assets. Many of these formulas incorporate return on assets. It is important to understand that pricing typically involves discussions and negotiations across managers from every part of the company. While the marketing department might arrive at what they believe is the optimal price to maximize profits, that price will assume a particular production cost. What if the purchasing department doesn't believe it can meet targeted materials costs? Or the production department doesn't believe that it can meet production cost targets? Or the engineering department doesn't believe that the product can be designed to meet the targeted price and still meet quality expectations? All of these factors must be considered. This chapter provides a sound foundation on which to base your pricing decisions.
Zappos is an online retailer known mostly for its world-class customer service. They're all about delivering happiness to employees, customers, and vendors. Employees enjoy full health benefits, free breakfast, lunch, and snacks, awesome parties, theme days, and even a nap room. Customers are wowed by free upgrades to overnight shipping and a 365-day return policy. And the vendors, the companies that provide the goods that Zappos sells, are truly, well, partners.
We work with over 1,000 different vendors and brands, and really those are some of our most important relationships. And it's really, our philosophy is, over time, we really want to build not just professional relationships, but personal relationships with our vendors.
As you're about to see, these vendor relationships are key to understanding the Zappos approach to pricing. Let's take a look at the four main approaches for selling goods or services to external parties. In a highly competitive industry, the laws of supply and demand make it difficult for one company to significantly affect price. To earn a profit, companies must focus on controlling costs. Thus, they set a target cost to provide a desired profit. Since target costing describes how Zappos prices about 80% of their products, we'll discuss this in more detail in a moment. Zappos also sells several private label brands. Given that these products have little to no competition, Zappos is better positioned to set their own price. Cost-plus pricing involves establishing a cost base and adding a markup to determine the target selling price. The size of the markup, the plus, depends on the desired return on investment. Now, cost-plus pricing is easy to compute. That's the advantage. The disadvantage is that at lower sales volume, they must charge higher prices to meet desired return on investment.
For some of our branded product, the margin is around a 50 to 52. With our private label brands, it can be 65 to 70% markup on those areas, just based off of our efficiencies with costing and quantities.
Instead of using full costs to set prices, some companies simply add markup to variable costs. This is helpful in pricing special orders or when excess capacity exists. The disadvantage to variable cost pricing is that managers may set a price too low and fail to cover fixed costs, which in the long run will lead to losses. Another variation on cost-plus pricing is time and material pricing. Here, two pricing rates are set, one for labor and the other for materials, with a markup for overhead and profit. This is widely used in several industries, especially professional firms such as public accounting, law, and engineering. Okay, now let's go back and take a closer look at target costing. As we said, the focus here is on controlling costs, since raising the price isn't the ideal option. How does a company keep costs low? Well, let's take a look at vendors. A company can nickel and dime them, or, like Zappos, a company can just be nice. Tony mentioned earlier that they focus on building personal relationships with their vendors, and they do this to keep the costs of purchasing goods from vendors as reasonable and low as possible.
And over time, we found that that's really helped our business in ways, sometimes in ways that we just couldn't even possibly predict. With better vendor relationships, we're able to do things such as get better payment terms. So instead of having to pay in 30 days, which is kind of the industry standard, we've had cases where we pay 120 days later.
120 days? That is simply unheard of in their industry. And it means Zappos is often able to sell the product before they have to pay for the product. If a company has to pay for goods before they sell them, they might have to borrow that money and pay interest. On the other hand, if they sell the product well before they have to pay for it, they can earn interest. Good relationships with vendors also lead to occasional line item discounts,
Where we can take discounts off the cost of the PO.
meaning discounts off the actual purchase order. So they not only pay later than competitors, they also pay less.
We've always believed that if you're nice to someone and do what's best for both companies, that it's going to be beneficial to you in the end.
What are examples of how Zappos treats their vendors more like partners? Well, chargebacks are a common practice in the retail industry. Let's say you ship the wrong size shipment or the wrong color to your customer, who is the retailer. They literally charge you for your mistake. Zappos could easily do this, but they choose not to.
And we just really don't go down that route. We see it as, let's figure this out together. Let's do what's best for both of us. In the end, that be nice and deliver wow has benefited us not only, with our personal relationships we have with the vendors, but also financially.
Let's finish our discussion of pricing by talking about ethics. Let's say you run your own company selling shoes on the web, and one morning you discover a pricing error in the website programming. That's exactly what happened to Zappos recently.
We had an error on our 6 p.m. site, which is our sister site that we do all of our liquidations on.
We accidentally marked down products way beyond where they were supposed to be marked down, and it was only for a few hours, and it was in the early morning.
So what do you do in a situation like that?
Most companies would have canceled. You are well within your rights. You do build that into the site to cancel orders if there is an error.
For us, it wasn't even a debate. We knew we had to fulfill those orders.
Oh, did we mention that it was a $1.6 million mistake?
It affected about 20,000 styles. So it was definitely a hit. We felt it from a margin perspective and from a financial perspective.
We never intended it to be for PR purposes, but it went all over Twitter and blogs, and then there were news stories about it, and it ended up actually having a lot of positive PR for us.
But in the end, Zappos is doing much more than just being nice. In accounting terms, they are establishing what are known as best practices, developing relationships that provide business alignment and ROI, and they're focusing on qualitative issues as well as quantitative. This leads to more vendors, allowing Zappos to grow and increase efficiencies, thus further lowering internal costs. Zappos has become a leader in their industry, in part by understanding the market forces at work, but they've done it in such an innovative yet effective manner. It just might be the future of how companies do business.